I think one's got to be very careful about this, say from a viewer's point of view, where he expects art to define. In fact, art does not define, it infers. And so therefore its emotional dimension is much greater than, for instance, science, which defines the object. We increase the emotional range and understanding of the object in a different way. The poets have always felt it their license to say, well, by way of example, I see the sunshine in your eyes, my darling. Well, what I'm inclined to do is to actually sort of put the sunshine there, and so thereby increasing the metaphor of not only it is I, but it is also sun.
Yeah, I see that.
You know, certain circular forms not only belong to, say, the round apple box tree, but it also becomes a head. It can become spider-like forms. It can become any number of things. Now, all of this can be hopelessly contrived, and it's terribly important that when one begins, one casts out the whole sort of net of shapes and forms, what is loosely called doodling, in order to get some sort of response from the drawing and the painting. So it begins to talk to you and begins to remind you of a whole sort of metaphorical circumstance.
So the drawing becomes an environment, in a way.
The drawing becomes an environment. In fact, this lacings line that I'm doing here is also sort of lacing one's experiences. I never limit people to the subject interpretation of my own work. I think that it's a very important thing to allow the spectator to have his imagination, what the thing represents to him.
I know when I first saw your picture over here that won the Wynne Prize, that there was another element in it to me, and this was that the objects in it seemed to be crawling up the hill.
That's right.
There seemed to be an implied movement there. I think that perhaps that whole hill comes alive because of that implied movement, but at the same time, the forms and shapes in it could be the forms and shapes of a real landscape.
Precisely. This is a very interesting point. That, look, really what one is doing, you know, forgetting about that inadequate English word doodling, what one is trying to do is to put a Rorschach test over the landscape. In other words, that one is reminded of forms and shapes in the landscape. It's really, in a way, what I call, you know, painting of the bloodstream. That a dual process is going on. You are allowing things to happen in which the conscious mind isn't controlling, but at the same time that you are on the lookout to trap and ensnare something that reminds you of something that you might have experienced before.
Yeah.